Hello, Chris. Good
Good
morning.
morning, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm always going to be earlier than you, so considering that, I am great. I am great. It
I
looks like
mean,
it's going to
you
be
are
like a
you're constantly 5 minutes ahead of me. No matter where in the world we are, if we're even in the same time zone, you're still going to be
like
5 minutes.
mentally
Yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, just
yeah,
in general.
intellectually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and emotionally and intellectually, I believe that to be true. How are you recovering from Canada Day? It was only 2 days ago. I know that
Well,
that's such
the emotional damage from our podcast episode is still, you know, blooming, but I actually didn't do much for Canada Day. Usually we go out and we listen to the music and everything, but I had a weirdly really packed work day, and I just kind of sat around afterwards. I don't know. It was a
I
very
believe that is
non-eventful.
actually illegal to do in Canada is to work on Canada Day.
Right?
I believe that
Listen,
that
my
is, yeah.
my kid went out. She went out and she took full advantage of all of the festivities. So I feel like I somehow contributed from a familial point of view.
That is terrific. I'm here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to celebrate the 4th of July, which is sort of like Canada Day, but just for us south of the border. And
Oh, do you have a national holiday?
we do. We actually do. It's called the 4th of July. We don't call it
Right.
America Day, even though that we're starting to call everything else America stuff. But
Right.
America Day is 4th of July. It's terrific. But I'm here visiting my in-laws, and it reminds me of what do you call a priest that graduated from law school? It's a father-in-law.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn our attention to the actual topic today.
That's a good dad joke. That was good. I mean, come on. That was at
I
least
like to give you
three.
credit for these, you know.
Um,
I'm going to turn our attention to today's topic, which I kind of really, really like because it's sort of nerdy and it's all about the technical side of marketing. And I was just wondering, Chris, if you know what a baby computer calls his father.
no.
Data.
Slow dramatic clap. Well done on the dad joke this morning. Again, once again, the only person who's not a dad crushes the dad jokes. Nice. Well done.
Hey, I got a question for you. Why do most founders waste money on SEO that never works? Did you know that 68% of online experiences begin with a search engine? Google's founders originally called the search engine back rub, which I, for all sorts of reasons, get uncomfortable with because it analyzed backlinks. Today on How to Founder, we're going to be talking about search engine optimization, also known as SEO. I am your host today, Stephanie Hayes, and with me is my wonderful co host, Chris Franks. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
And as we are always so fortunate to have, we have our guest, Andrew Laws. He's the founder of YesEO.io, an SEO agency he's grown for over 24 years and the host of the Business Amplifier podcast. Blending technical search expertise with a musician's creativity, Andrew demystifies digital marketing for business owners who feel stuck, delivering jargon-free strategies that unlock traffic, leads, and revenue. He's helped hundreds of companies boost visibility, authored countless blog tutorials, and speaks on AI hacks, competitor analysis, and content creation when you've got no ideas. With a playful chief pizza eater title and decades of real world wins, Andrew brings approachable, actionable SEO wisdom. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It's very nice to hear you kind of say those things. I was thinking, have I done all those? Then you mentioned pizza, and it all kind of connected up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Chief
yeah,
Pizza
pizza.
Eater is a great title. Well done.
Chief skateboarder.
Chief skateboard, the only one foolish enough still to skateboard past 25, I think. And I am way past 25. I'm so far past 25 that here in the UK, if you buy alcohol on, you get self-service checkouts, they have a button that they have to come and press that says visibly over 25. They just they press it twice for me now. They're like, yeah, at least double that.
That's amazing. Okay, let's dive in. So, Andrew, why does SEO matter so much to founders? And what's the biggest misconception that's costing them money?
I think it matters so much because it's the most cost efficient way to get yourself in front of people. So I initially got into SEO because I started a button badge making company last century, and I had no marketing budget. I had the money for the machine, and that was it. So I thought, if I rank that company so that when you search for button badges, they come up first, then the company will survive. I sold that company within 3 months of starting it because it grew so fast. I'd love to be a founder that say it grew so fast that I was able to kind of like monetize. And no, it just turns out I was terrible at making button badges. So, and overwhelmed. So I sold the company to a friend, but I was hooked then, because at the time there were two very, very large companies in Europe, and I beat them both within days really of starting. SEO was a bit easier back then, but that's one reason it's really important for founders. The effort to reward ratio can be absolutely fantastic, absolutely huge. Never mind kind of borrowing lots of money for ad campaigns. Invest a bit of time learning about SEO and do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the attraction. I think that, I've been in the internet marketing world. I have a diploma in internet marketing from 1998, like literally from the university. And there's not a lot that's actually changed that much fundamentally. We just have new tools and bigger audiences and all that sort of thing. So is that the attraction for founders, is that there's a possibility that I can do something and get results pretty quickly? Or is that changing now?
I don't think it's changing at all. If anything, it's now more accessible. So obviously, as a founder, money has to be really carefully looked at, and as a founder, also you want to retain a lot of control over what you're doing. I mean, you live or die by your own decisions. So the more of those decisions you can make yourself, the more comforting that can be, or scary, depending on how you view life. So with SEO, if you put the effort in and you get the reward, you own it. Whereas if you're paying for advertising, or potentially on your first sort of few years, if you're paying for another agency, there's always the risk that you can lose some progress if they disengage from you, or you don't want to work with them anymore. I'm a real believer in SEO being a fantastic way for people who are starting a company to just build their own foundations to the house. They're yours then. They're completely yours. They cannot be taken away once they're in place.
Chris, you've built businesses and you have, marketed and sold businesses. How strongly has SEO been a consideration for you? How much have you used it in your own founding activities?
I think it's one of those things that is always an undercurrent of the things you do. And if you're thinking hard about how you want to position yourself, SEO is one of those things that is constantly available as that pathway. But for me, at least, and I think that all three of us have been doing this a long time. To me, it has changed. And there was a moment, and this is kind of ancient history at this point, when you could sort of hack Google. You could go through, you could do the backlinks, you could do the meta tags, all the technical SEO stuff, and get to a place where you could sort of trick Google. That I don't think is true anymore. I think really what SEO now is actually about creating value, I think. But I want to ask the question. So I'll be the provocative one here and say, convince me, Andrew. I am still on this boat of, I came up in the world of paid marketing. I know SEO is strong. I know it still plays, but is it the most important thing for me as a founder? I'm genuinely on the fence.
SEO is not the most important thing for you as a founder.
Fair. If the most important thing as far as positioning in digital marketing.
The most important thing as a founder, well, there are several things that are more important, and the most important thing is understanding your customer base, your clients, and understanding how to look after them very, very well. And there's a crucial word here, how to be helpful to your customers. People buy because of trust and because of helpfulness. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. If, hey, these people are helpful, I will liberate my wallet and hand it over to them. And the reason that's more important than using SEO as a starting point is SEO is fantastic at amplifying that message, at amplifying your excellence, but it can't kind of conjure BS. It can't, it's not an illusion. And you talked about how you used to be able to hack Google. I was never smart enough to figure that stuff out. So I've only ever kind of done what might be called white hat SEO. But the reason that's no longer possible is Google's just got much better at sniffing out the dog poo. So Google's obsessed with brands because they're obsessed with brands because you can't build a brand successfully. It doesn't matter what industry you're in unless you are genuinely helpful to the people you are serving. So no, SEO isn't the number one thing at all. But once you've got the important stuff in place, then amplify it with SEO. Turn the volume right up.
I remember when we were first, early days of the internet, when you would put white text on a white background to, you know, embed keywords inside of a page to fool the search engines.
Also, I do feel like we've buried the lead here, Stephanie. You have a degree in internet marketing from
I
1998.
do. It was from the University of British Columbia. I had just finished my undergrad, and I was like, I had just my undergrad. I was right into new media and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, halfway through my degree, the internet popped up, and I was like, what? It just blew my mind. It blew my brains out. And I was like, we built the first online magazine and all this stuff. So I've been in this for a while. And then as soon as I finished my degree, this new program popped up at the University of British Columbia. And it was like a 10-month certificate program in internet marketing. I'm like, yes, please. Cost me like $9,000 or something. And I'm like, I want to be this first person through, and I want to be doing internet marketing. And then I went through all the .com stuff and everything like that. So yes, but Andrew, is there a type of business for which SEO is just not going to be effective?
Businesses that don't sell to humans.
Mm.
It's difficult because when I'm challenged by my own business coach or other people I work with and collaborate with, and I'm asked who my ideal client is, it's kind of, well, I give the same horrible answer I hear all the time. It's everybody, because there is no one, especially now that AI is encroaching on search, you know, on taking some volume away from Google. Then it's more important than ever to be human, be authentic, and actually understand the people that you want to influence and the people you want to help.
So talk a little bit about this shift to AI, because it is really quite significant. I was talking to someone yesterday and they were like, I don't even use a search engine anymore. I just go to my AI tool and ask them to find what I want. So what's that like from a philosophical perspective? How's that affecting the whole SEO industry?
From a philosophical perspective, I think it's massively helping it, because we've been dominated by having one primary provider for so long. But at the moment, with people using AI, there is no, you know, ChatGPT might be ahead, but there's no, in terms of number of users, but there's no like real dominant yet. And there's things will pop up, like DeepMind popped up from China. They sort of come out of thin air and, hey, they're really popular for 5 minutes, and then it's something else, and then it's something else. And I think what that's doing is actually massively democratizing the way we search for data. So as a founder, it's putting us back into being in the Wild West. So you talk about 1998. I can remember kind of doing SEO back then, and it was just chucking stuff at a wall and seeing what worked. You know, it was like a brave new era where anything was possible, and gradually much larger companies came in. And it's not that we had to kowtow to them, but Google for SEO for so long has been, well, what do we know about Google? And the nice thing about AI, it's there's plenty of choice out there now, and it's now taking up 7% of search volume, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that is a lot. And what I particularly like is all the people who have been running fantastic businesses and working really hard to be helpful to their clients and customers. They are increasingly getting more out of people using AI, because it relies so much on what's on your website. So SEMrush did some research recently, and they looked at how reliant Google is when it tells people things about your business compared to how reliant ChatGPT is when people ask things of ChatGPT. They could have had an easier name, ChatGPT, about your business. And Google relies about 40% on the things you're putting on your website because it's got its fingers in lots of other pies. ChatGPT relies 80% on what you've got on your website. And the reason I think that's exciting for founders is, hey, you control your website. With Google, you don't control all these other touch points that they kind of go and look at and use to provide strangers with information about your business. This is a good thing. We're taking back our businesses.
So what do you recommend? So I'm a new founder. I've just started up a new business. What do you recommend in terms of a strategy for me to get the most out of and the most leverage out of SEO and putting some investment into creating that kind of data-driven strategy for myself?
The most important investment at the moment is time. And I know that's challenging when you're a founder. But the nice thing is that there's a whole checklist of things you have to do with a new website. And we used to do that as an SEO agency. But now, if you're going to launch, if you're a founder who's launching a new website, just ask any of the AIs, what are the 10 things I should do first on a mechanical level? And I say on a mechanical level because it will be connect to Search Console, all these like one-off things, get some sort of analytics, probably just really dull things that they're not even worth talking about really, but they're all out there. But the first job is to think about one thing. Set aside some time, just give yourself only 10 or 15 minutes, set aside some time, grab yourself a good old-fashioned piece of paper and a pen, and think to yourself, what questions do people ask me just before they buy my product or service? What's the final thing they ask me? Write down those questions, and then on your website, write a blog post for each of them. So if you're selling, pick something, because I love kind of when I do public speaking, I throw this out to the crowd, and I'm always stymied by the fact that somebody chooses something weird. So Chris, give me some fictional business. What are you selling? What's a bizarre thing that you sell?
I really love selling coffee cups. I'm a big coffee drinker. So
that's the best you could
cups.
come up with. What about pickleball shoes?
I mean, pickleball shoes, pretty good. Actually, as I'm sitting here by a large lake, I sell boating accessories, things to put on your boat, which is pretty cool.
I actually own a website selling male trimmers.
What, to really tall people if you need them to be shorter? Or
no,
think about the hedges, she trims the male.
I do. It's called Trimmer Web. I own that site. I don't even know if it's up and running anymore, but
I'm going to go back to coffee cups, not because I don't like the hedge trimming idea, but I know I can keep myself on a more even keel kind of with coffee cups than I can.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, other stuff. So you're selling coffee cups, Chris. So what are your most popular coffee cups? Out of your range, what's the one cup that people come in and really fall in love with?
I mean, it's those Yetis. They keep your coffee warm all day long. It's amazing.
So you've got the people, they come into your shop or in their online store and they're stroking their chin and they're looking at the Yetis and they're thinking, do you know what? I do like that, but I just need to know if. And they walk over to you at the counter or send you an email or whatever your interaction is. What's the question that they ask you that if you give them the answer, they go, just take my money?
Is this coffee cup worth $50?
Wow. That is absolutely brilliant. We're leaping here from like, what do you do to start to something quite advanced, right? So is it worth $50? Because the reality is you might put things on your website about, hey, how heavy is this cup? Will it break in the dishwasher? And those things. Very few business owners are prepared to be brave enough to answer the really difficult questions on their website. So is it really worth $50? People will be searching for that. And none of your competitors are going to have the things that you might trim with a hedge trimmer to kind of really write write a genuine answer on that. I did it for my own business. If you search for how much does an SEO agency cost, you find my website, because I put my prices on there because none of my competitors were doing it. But you better believe that's a question people want to know the answer to. So that was great. Nice one, Chris.
Yeah, well, just to say, you got fans out there. Great advice.
Oh,
It's obvious, but also genius. Also, something that never people have said about us, Stephanie. It's neither obvious nor genius.
No, we're still waiting for that feedback.
Still, yeah.
But Andrew, let me poke into this just a little bit further, because the initial win at sort of ranking for, is my coffee cup worth a hedge trimmer? No, is my coffee cup worth $50? Um, that doesn't stay that way necessarily for the rest of eternity. I bought a business a couple of years ago, and that business had been built entirely based on domain authority, right? For many years, because she started the business super early, 2014, and back then you could just write a blog post and get domain authority. And then she didn't spend a lot of time. Oh my God, the surface of the sun just came in. She didn't spend a lot of time maintaining her SEO. And so by the time I bought the business, all of that domain authority had now been taken over by, much larger sites and much larger organizations. So how do I maintain, like, there's a whole other strategy in terms of maintaining what advances I've gotten. So what's the longer term play here?
The longer term play here is to use one of the superpowers that you have as a founder that larger companies don't have, and that's agility. So one thing we have to warn our clients about is that if you're running your website and you start to rank and you start to do really well, your competitors are going to notice. And at some point, your competitors are going to speak to an SEO agency or just somebody who knows, who's going to do a bit of competitor research into how you got to where they are. And they are going to say to your competitors, do you know what? They did this by writing blog posts about questions people asked regarding hedge trimmers. And your competitors are going to go, do you know what, team? We need to do that. We need to do some of that. And your competitors are going to speak to other analysts, and then they're going to get buy-in from their board, and then they're going to change the culture in the business to get people to start thinking about in the meantime, you're still putting up new content all the time. You have agility. Larger companies, if they're competitors, it takes them a very long time to actually mobilize. And I mean, once they've mobilized, sadly, I think they might beat you. But then you use your agility as a founder again to pivot again and go, well, now I know what our competitors are doing. They're not talking about this, or they haven't given anyone the ability to use virtual reality to see how the Yeti cup might look on the dashboard of their car. So that's the best I could do. So yeah, the long-term strategy is kind of attritional. Just keep at it. But if you want to survive and do it well, make it part of your workflow. Make it part of your mindset. Chris, earlier you said that SEO isn't really just like a thing. It's not doing a thing. It's really more of a mindset. It's starting to think in a certain way. And one of the things I like about the founder's advantage, let's call it that, is that there's a whole generation of people now who are so comfortable and used to social media. They'll easily reflect things going on in their lives through their social media. And as a founder, you probably do that anyway, but just reflect some more of that through your site. Because another one of the massive advantages you have, especially in the age of AI, is your authenticity. Your competitors, if they're bigger than you, they have to get stuff through the thought police. They have to have committees of things to decide, committees of people who are always very kind of risk averse to decide whether you can put up a picture of your Yeti in the hand of a Yeti. You don't have to do those.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. It's kind of,
that'd be funny.
It led that way.
Right.
But as Stephanie's completely thrown me off tack here. If anyone's not watching this, you're missing out. It's you use your advantage. You use your your wiliness, use your power, use your survivorship bias. If you're a founder and you're starting, especially if you're not at the point where you've got money coming in yet, your survivorship bias, your drive to have to pay your bills is going to be your biggest advantage over any of your competitors. So in long-term strategy, continue giving a hoot.
Chris, yesterday, or was it yesterday? I don't even know. Someday this week, we did a Tuesday, we did an episode on growth hacks. And your growth hack was all around AI and how AI can really supplement your marketing and start giving you insight into a customer base. If you were starting up a business right now, how would you combine, your strategies using AI, your strategies with SEO? Like, how would you put those together as a founder?
I think it's a terrific question. I'll say this was what I would do, but then Andrew, tell me if I'm being smart or not, because the reality is that AI is very good at writing copy, and you obviously have to be very cautious about who are you writing copy for. And I really like Andrew's frame to say, really start by asking what problems you're solving on behalf of the customer, and then work your way backwards from there. And you have to be very explicit to the AI engine about who your customers are and be very descriptive. And so I use AI a lot to help create web copy. And this is my question, Andrew, can I use it for my blog posts? I have created, I'll always edit them, but I use AI to drive some of my blog ideas and blog writing. Is that okay? And in the world of AI-driven search, is there an anti-AI bias within AI search?
If you want to get a good reaction from a room full of people who do SEO, just ask them this question. I run something called the SEO Collective, which is just for people in SEO to come and geek out about stuff. Basically, it's a networking thing. And if you ask that question, you'll get some very strong responses. It's like in this country, if you ask British people, when you're making a cup of tea, do you put the milk in first or second? You're going to start fights. It's a shocking question to ask. But in terms of content, the answer is, how helpful is that content you're creating? Google kind of won't be drawn for definite on whether AI content is good or bad. Partly, I think, because they've got Google Bard, which is kind of one of the writing tools that you can use. Their semi-official line at the moment is, we don't care if it's AI generated. We just care whether it's helpful or not. I think if you're kind of lazy with content generation, doesn't matter which AI you're using, and you just say, write me a 1,000-word blog post about Yeti cups, it's going to churn out junk. And the reason is that all the LLMs, your GPTs and Gemini, they've absorbed all the stuff that's available on the internet. And if you don't give them many instructions, they just give you a beigeness, like a midpoint that doesn't have any highs or lows. It just sticks in the middle. A good use of it would be if you're using an AI that has an agentic ability, so it can go out and look at stuff, which GPT can, and we use a Manus over here in the SEO. Do that and just say, go have a look at what's ranking in the top 25 on Google. Find commonality in them. Do some assessment on the lengths of the articles and things like that. The reason this is a really smart thing to do is that Google has a very different understanding of every topic on earth. And whilst it might favor a 400-word article for hedge trimmers, it might favor an 800-word long article for something else. And then tell it to do some analysis. Okay, what themes are always discussed? Because you can then use that as a starting point for generating an article. And yeah, you can then, if you've built up enough data, you can then ask your AI to write the article for you. I still wouldn't recommend going that far, but one of the temptations and one of the reasons people use AI for generating whole articles is it's a lot faster than typing. That's what it comes down to. Either you're potentially a grifter and you don't know the subject and you just want to churn out loads of junk, and none of the search engines are going to reward a website that can generate 1,000 articles a month. It's just going to go, never mind. But if you are that person, then just, yeah, go nuts. You're not going to get anywhere. But if you're a business owner, especially if you're a founder and you're passionate about what you want to do, and you're using these tools to write the best content you possibly can, the only reason I think to actually have GPT write the article is speed. But there's a better option. If I write a long article now, I use something called Flow. And it's basically a dictation tool that understands context. So iOS, Mac, if you hold down the key and dictate, it certainly doesn't understand my thick British accent. It just finds my impenetrable British accent impossible to work with, and I end up spending more time fixing things than I do actually using it. But this Flow, I think it's called Flow GPT, actually, you hold down your finger and I can write it the equivalent of 170 words a minute. So very, very fast. And then I've got a custom GPT, which I've put some things I've written into it. So this is my style. So I end up with a massive chunk of text. I can write 500 words very, very, very quickly. I drop it into the GPT. It breaks it out into the paragraphs so that it's nice web copy. It puts the titles in. It fixes any odd little colloquialisms I've used. And I tell it to watch out for, I'm in a county called Suffolk, which is to tell you what this county is like, our football team's called the Tractor Boys. So it's quite rural, and I might slip into the occasional rural accent like that. That's what we sound like here. And it pulls out some of that stuff. So I'm using GPT for speed, but I'm not using GPT to make the product.
I think, sorry.
No, I'll just carry on and on if you don't interrupt me. It's a real problem. I'm aware of it. I'm working on it.
So to me, there's another layer here, and Andrew, to your point earlier, and I'm kind of marrying what both of you have said. Your point earlier was the best thing you can do is understand your customers and how they think, and that gets you to better keywords and blah blah blah. And then a couple of days ago, Chris said the most powerful thing about AI is its ability to understand and emulate an audience, right? And so I think the power there is bringing those two together to say, let's create something that emulates this audience in a really significant way, and then AI becomes sort of this very strategic tool.
It can become like a whole team of people. One of the very first things we did with AI, which I can't take credit for, I can't remember their name, somebody showed me it, is we worked on generating an ideal client avatar, really detailed one. And then we created a custom GPT for that. But we also loaded in things like the 21 psychological triggers for buying. And what that gave us was a really fast way of asking questions of our audience without actually having to go and ask questions of our audience. So if we had a marketing message we want to test for a client, we could either do the old fashioned thing and spend a bit of money on a Facebook ad campaign to see how it reacts, or go out in the street and do talking heads, a straw poll kind of thing. Or we just use this persona that we generated and say, like, I want to do this. How would you react to that? And that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, because the hardest part to me of SEO is the keyword research and finding that place that you want to rank. And it's all long tail now, right? And it's all contextual, and it's all getting really smart about understanding what your customer might ask and who they are, and finding those little underserved gaps. Chris, is there anything else that you would have to say about that, about the knowing your customers, about the personas, about the understanding, like keywords, that piece of what we're calling SEO?
No, I think we've nailed it. I just have one kind of clarifying question. So I think that understanding your customers, understanding what it is that they need. But Andrew, I came out of a world where it was all keyword driven. And so it was about the individual words and density. And again, that was back in the world when people were trying to, hack, and they were using a different model for search. Really, what I hear you saying is that in 2025, it's about writing things that are helpful and doing that consistently. Is it that simple? I mean, did I miss anything as far as the actual tactics here?
Not at all. I truly believe that if you are running a fantastic business and you understand your customers and you understand what's helpful to them and what motivates them, and you have the ability to express that in clear ways, and you can build authority within your community, around your peers, you never need to speak to an SEO professional ever. The whole algorithm is designed to find the very best and most helpful businesses. That's really it. Everything we do in SEO is effectively ironing out the creases and speeding things up, making sure the information is accessible and all those things. But it still rewards fantastic companies. And if you're a fantastic company, I mean, no one's going to sit around. I could tell you, if you run a fantastic company, it's probably going to take 10 years to rank, however good you are. So yeah, come speak to an SEO consultant, because we'll make that much faster. But we're not really adding any magical pixie dust to your business. You've already done that. We're just amplifying it. We're just making it far bigger. One last thing I want to say about keywords is that, yes, a lot of people are still making the mistake of chasing the really big volume ones. So coffee cup, travel mug, they'll be chasing that. But the intent behind those words isn't as commercially interesting to us as founders as key phrases like fast delivery coffee cup reviews, things that are much closer to the buying decision, which is why right at the start, when you asked me where somebody should start with an SEO strategy, start with the end in mind. Start with that last question somebody asks before they put money in your hand.
Yeah, I love that. And intent is something we're constantly driving home when we're talking about SEO, because, you know, it's so easy to get blinded by, you know, the Uber suggest list of potential keywords, but they don't necessarily represent the persona that your AI engine is going to tell you a little bit more about. Okay, Andrew, this has been an amazing conversation. I, love SEO. We could probably talk about this for another hour. You ready for the speed round? It's really exciting.
Oh, let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. This is very dramatic.
I wasn't expecting that graphic or anything.
I thought you were so
very
polite. You
intense.
asked. You're
No,
like,
I nearly
"Hey,
fell
are
off
you
my
ready?"
chair. I was like,
Yeah, usually I just was like,
Here, take it. Okay, these are just get reaction. Don't think too hard about them. Fast answers. Let's go. Okay, you ready?
Yep. Was that
All
the
right.
first one? That was really easy.
Yeah, you did good. You did good. We had a little warm up there. All right, fix technical issues or create content.
Create content.
Okay. Target high volume keywords or long tail searches.
Long tail searches.
Optimize for Google or optimize for users.
Humans, users.
Focus on local SEO or national rankings.
Local, then it grows.
That's right. All right. See, it wasn't that hard. It
was
was
that it?
very, very exciting and very dramatic.
I'm glad I didn't cover my arms in crib notes like I was going into an exam or anything. Oh, I did. I just did it. I did it old Google style. I did like white on white.
Tattoos. Such black hat tattoos. Awesome. Chris, what did you take out of our conversation today?
Learned a ton. SEO is the effort that you own. So it's a high leverage tactic as a founder. Start with understanding your customers and just be helpful. AI now represents 7% of the search market, and it is highly reliant on content. So obviously content is always the best option. What questions do people ask you right before they buy, and then go write a blog post on each one of those? Great advice. Use your founder's advantage. People actually care about you. They don't necessarily care about your business. This is my favorite of the individual tactics. Use AI to analyze what posts are ranking in your business and in your field of interest. And then use the targeted phrases that are more interesting. But at the end of this, I double underlined it. It says, write stuff and be helpful, or be helpful and write stuff. And that really is the thing I'm taking away, which is just try to be a useful human and solve problems, and then write blog posts about it. I really enjoyed it. I learned a ton. Thank you so much, Andrew.
That's my absolute pleasure. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you, Stephanie, as well.
There's one other point that I think came out of this that I remember was, and it, sort of was like the aha moment for me. And it was that your advantage is your agility as a founder, as a small business, and that's going to impact your ability to move quickly and to create content that would take a much larger organization, a much larger competitor, a lot more time to sort of get to. So I thought that was a really good um, good piece that we took out of our conversation. All right, we have some deep dive resources. The Art of SEO by Eric Enge, Foundational Strategy and Technical Understanding of SEO. SEO for Growth by John Yench, Practical Implementation for Small Businesses, and the Local SEO Guide by Moz, Tactical Local Search Optimization. Terrific conversation today. Andrew, where can our guests or our listeners learn more about you?
The best way to learn more about me is from the Business Amplifier podcast. If you search on YouTube or any podcast platform, you'll find us there. I also email a lot of people Monday every week with 3 stories that I think will be of interest to founders. The whole email is designed to be read in under 15 seconds. And can I make a book recommendation? Those books sound really interesting, but there's a book written by somebody called Marcus Sheridan, and it's called They Ask, You Answer. And if you're listening to this as a founder and you want a starting point, that book is a fantastic starting point.
Oh, amazing. We'll put that into the notes as well and get that up on our deep dive resources, because I think if we can get recommendations from our experts, all the better. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to visit howtofounder.com, where you can connect with us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify channels. You are the pioneer of economic prosperity. We are grateful for being there with you all along the way. And thank you so much for joining us today. And go check out Andrew and all of his amazing resources. Okay. Thanks, guys. It was a great conversation, and hope to see all of you in our next episode on Monday. Okay. See you later, guys.